Uh-oh.
I said to anybody, she fought in January, and you asked the people involved, why is your world champion, who's BOXXER of the year last year, not had a fight all year, and we're in the month of November? That's a terrible way to treat somebody, any champion, male or female. But Tasha knows, and I've asked her for the last 3 or 4 months just to retire now, finish with the sport. You don't need to be doing this no more. You've achieved everything you need to achieve, and she's got a good job with Sky, and just hang up your gloves and walk away. The way you're being treated and disrespected in the last 11 months is shocking, to be fair.
Joe's not happy, and he's never been one to hold his tongue. When they were at Matchroom and they weren't happy, they were vocal about it. Now they're at BOXXER and they're not happy. He's being vocal about it.
He's not happy.
I can't say as I blame him. It's true what he says. Natasha's had one fight this entire calendar year, the Michaela Mayer fight, with plenty of time to do another. And another.
But they didn't.
This entire calendar year, I half expected to see Tasha Jonas in the ring with Ivana DAZN in a unification match for Natasha's IBF and Ivana's WBC. That didn't happen. And we're in November now.
There's just 1 month left.
It's not just Natasha either. I feel like we don't see enough of Olympic gold medalist Lauren Price. I feel like we don't see enough of her significant other, Karis Artingstall. I feel like the both of those fighters, if they would have signed the Matchroom out of the amateurs instead of BOXXER, we'd see more of them, and they as fighters would be further along by now.
I feel.
But they went to BOXXER, and it just feels like they're not being pushed. They're not really being promoted, though they should be. Not just because of their amateur backgrounds, not just because of who they are, but what else is going on. You will notice that some of BOXXER's more noteworthy fighters, like, say, Frazier Clark, Ben Whitaker,
Chris Eubank Jr.,
Chris Billum Smith, they either fought or are set to fight on Riyadh season shows. What does that mean?
That BOXXER's not paying for those fights. Sky's not paying for those fights.
Riyadh season is paying for those fights. Riyadh season is paying those fighters. Not Sky, not BOXXER. So in theory, that should have created a surplus of cash at Sky and BOXXER to make fights for their other fighters that are not boxing on Riyadh season shows. And yet, BOXXER didn't do all that many shows this year, did they? We saw their fighters, but they themselves didn't put on that many fights, didn't put on that many cards.
And so fighters like Natasha Jonas are left waiting for a fight date. Fighters like Lauren Price, Karis Artingstall.
Because BOXXER didn't put on that many fights, though they should have. They should have been able to, since quite a few of their fighters were tied up in Riyadh season shows. Or is it that Ben Shalom allowed those fighters to fight in Riyadh season shows because he knew there wouldn't be that many fight dates?
What?
The reason that Ben Shalom all of a sudden warmed up to working with other promotional outfits and allowing his fighters to fight on somebody else's shows is because he knew there wouldn't be any money to put on his own.
Huh?
Budget cuts. Budget cuts. That this year, the people at Sky decided they're not going to spend that much money on boxing, and that caused Ben Shalom to outsource some of his fighters. Some of his bigger name fighters like Frazier Clark,
Ben Whitaker,
Chris Eubank, Chris Billum Smith. The reason he was finally willing to outsource some of his guys is because he didn't have the fight dates to accommodate them. All this year there's been a question as to whether or not Sky Sports will decide to renew with BOXXER at the end of their deal next year.
Will they or won't they?
It's the strength of the cards. What's the strength of the stable? Boxing on Sky Sports has lessened as of late in the absence of Matchroom. They got Ben Shalom and BOXXER to fill their shoes,
But come on.
BOXXER is no Matchroom, and Ben Shalom is no Eddie Hearn. They're trying their best.
But it's competitive.
It's difficult to try to compete with Eddie, and try to compete with Frank, and try to compete with Wasserman.
The Sauerlands.
It's difficult for Ben. It's not easy just working with what he's got and trying to build fighters and trying to preserve what he has. It's not easy.
So if when this year started, there were budget cuts at Sky, they're not going to spend that much money on their boxing content.
That would explain why they didn't do that many shows this year. That would explain the surge of BOXXER fighters that we saw on Riyadh season shows, and that would explain why Natasha Jonas and some others have been left in limbo.
More specific than Natasha.
It doesn't look like they're going to get her a fight before this year is out. That creates an area of opportunity for newly crowned WBO champion Mikaela Mayer to either get Natasha in the ring here stateside, since BOXXER isn't paying for it, or go after Ivana Habazin. Since BOXXER isn't paying for it, since BOXXER doesn't seem to be paying for her to unify titles with their champion, Natasha Jonas.
Mikaela, are you listening?
This is Mikaela's opportunity to either bring Natasha to America or bring Ivana to America.
Ivana's cheaper.
I'd wager that it would cost them a lot less to bring Ivana to America for a unification match than it would cost them to bring Natasha to America.
For a unification match.
Because it's true what Joe is saying. It's not a good look. Natasha Jonas only fought once way back there at the beginning of the year. When you have two champions at welterweight, you should be able to make a fight between them. And if you don't want to just yet, you should have been able to make a fight between one of them and Ivana Habazin. But you didn't.
Gotta be a reason.
It's budget cuts. I think it's budget cuts. That's the reason.
What about BOXXER to DAZN in the future then?
I mean, I don't think, I think after he gets sacked off after one term of a Sky deal, I'm not sure anyone's going to be jumping out of their desks to go and sign up the BOXXER team, but anything's possible.
Do you think Sky will leave boxing then?
No, that's where I say, like when people say about, I think Sky have been amazing for the sport of boxing, obviously, but things have their time, don't they? And what I'm not saying, yes, they're going to leave boxing. All I mean is, it's like people saying about HBO or Showtime. They were going for 30, 40, 50 years in boxing. The leaders in boxing for many years. Like Sky were in the UK. I'm saying, it's not, these are huge establishments, huge corporations that look at things and go, okay, we've done what we need, but let's move away now. There's other things to focus our attention on. So I think they could do, I'm not saying they will, but they could do.
Like I said in my previous segment, there's been a question all this year as to whether or not Sky Sports will renew with BOXXER at the end of their deal next year. Matchroom's Frank Smith entertains the possibility that they might not, and if they don't, there's not going to be a whole lot of people in a hurry to bring BOXXER on board because, well, what's the strength of the cards and what is the strength of the stable? BOXXER migrating over to DAZN like Queensbury just did, that's a possibility too.
DAZN brought smaller promotional outfits like Salida Promotions on board, GBM on board.
And some others, some smaller promotional outfits from all around the world. So it is conceivable that if Sky decided not to renew with BOXXER, BOXXER could end up on DAZN. It might. Though if it doesn't, what if it's getting too crowded over there at DAZN? Or maybe DAZN doesn't feel that BOXXER has anything to offer them. What if they take a different approach with BOXXER?
Like what?
They only want specific fighters. They only want specific fighters, the ones that they can use. They don't need the whole stable. They don't want it. Just specific fighters.
Oh.
There are different ways that could break down. That if for some reason Sky doesn't renew with BOXXER, the boxers themselves are going to need fight dates. They're going to need fights. They have bills to pay, just like me and you. And if Ben Shalom is unable to sort them out, they may migrate themselves. Joshua Buatsi might end up on a Queensbury.
Lauren Price and Karis Artingstall, they might end up on a Queensbury or a Matchroom.
With Natasha Jonas, it's a little bit different because she's up there in age She's much older than they are. You heard what Joe Gallagher said. He's been urging her to retire all year, that she doesn't have anything to prove anymore.
I don't think she goes back to Matchroom.
That in a doomsday scenario like this one, where BOXXER goes under because Sky won't renew and nobody else wants them, would Natasha go to Matchroom? I would sooner expect her to go to Queensbury than go to Matchroom.
Go back.
If you find yourself questioning what a scenario like this one might look like, you've already seen it play out with the PBC. You saw that Boots went to Matchroom, Subriel Matias went to Matchroom, Elvis Rodriguez went to Top Rank,
Michelle Rivera went to Salida Promotions.
Richardson Hitchens, Jahan Ingram, they went to Matchroom, just so on and so forth. That if you're wondering what this would look like, that's what it would look like. Fighters are gonna go where they think it's best for them. Whatever weight divisions they campaign in and who they feel has more options for them, that's where they would go in a scenario like that one. In a scenario where Sky don't renew and Ben can't sort them out, can't get them fights.
That would be the worst case scenario for Ben, that Sky don't renew and nobody else picks them up.
And so he's unable to hold on to those fighters as they begin to disperse and migrate elsewhere. Like I said, there's still another scenario, a possibility where maybe DAZN does bring them on. They've brought on smaller promotional outfits and lesser known promotional outfits than BOXXER, so there's still a chance that they'd bring them on.
We'll see. We'll get those answers next year.
Because the thing is, Frank and Eddie doing their shows on the same platform makes it very difficult for Sky Sports to stay in boxing, for Ben Shalom to keep up with them, to compete.
I don't think he can.
There's so many people like to pile on Ben as if it all boils down to know-how, but it's also having the materials. It is also having the fighters to put on the right fights.
That you can know how to make a lasagna, but it counts for nothing if you don't have the ingredients, and I don't think Ben has them.
Not to compete with both Eddie and Frank that next year are going to be doing all their shows on the same platform? How is he supposed to compete with that?
Maybe mistakes were made.
That when the deal with Sky was first inked, maybe Ben could have went about things a better way. He didn't go about them the right way. I don't know. I just know that here and now, he doesn't have the bodies to compete with the both of them.
And in a scenario like that one, Sky Sports as a platform might look across that boxing landscape and say, we can't keep up with these guys with what we've got, so we're just going to withdraw. We're just going to pull out. I mean, if HBO and Showtime can leave boxing,
then Sky Sports can leave boxing. Things change.
People change.
Why can't you see that?
For them, it may be more trouble than it's worth trying to keep up with the competition as it pertains to boxing.
Boxing really is a small world, and there are only so many big-time fights and big names to go around. If most of them are with Frank and Eddie, what the hell are they supposed to do?
They can't do much. They tried. They tried to fill the void with Ben and BOXXER, but in hindsight, it really didn't work. Finally, an unexpected bit of news from the men's super middleweight division. Apparently, Jaime Munguia will be boxing once again before this year is out, December 14th, as part of an ESPN Plus broadcast against France's own Bruno Surace.
In association with Top Rank and Zenfer Promotions, who is actually Jaime's lead promoter. It wasn't Golden Boy Promotions then, and it's not Top Rank now. It's actually Zenfer.
So he's boxing on ESPN again.
At a time where Oscar De La Hoya is volunteering him for a Matchroom versus Golden Boy Promotions tournament.
There have been rumors that my company, Golden Boy Promotions, may do a 5-on-5 against Matchroom Sports. These are the fights I propose. Virgil Ortiz versus Boots, Munguia versus Pacheco.
You will notice on a fight poster that Golden Boy Promotions insignia was not anywhere on there, and when you take a trip over to BoxRec to see who the promoters are, you'll see the name of Bob Arum of Top Rank, and you'll see Fernando Beltran of Zenfer, but you won't see Oscar, you won't see Golden Boy.
Which lends credence to the notion that Jaime Munguia has in fact parted ways with Golden Boy Promotions. He's not with them anymore, so why does Oscar keep pretending that he is?
Because he's childish?
There have been rumors that my company, Golden Boy Promotions, may do a 5-on-5 against Matchroom Sports, which is run by my buddy Eddie Hearn. We all know Eddie has the worst record as a promoter.
Because he's childish, indignantly stupid, and he knows how this makes him look. So Jaime is going to be fighting Bruno Surace, who sports professional record of 25 wins with no losses, 2 draws, 4 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 27 professional bouts. Needless to say, with only 4 recorded knockouts, this guy is not a puncher.
But this is a homecoming fight for Jaime, a return to his native Tijuana.
And thus, the appeal of the match isn't necessarily who Jaime's fighting so much as where he's fighting. Sporting a professional record of 44 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 35 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 45 professional bouts. Needless to say that he is the more experienced fighter of the two, the more seasoned fighter of the two, and the harder puncher.
In what will be his 3rd fight of this year, he suffered his first professional loss in May at the hands of Canelo Alvarez, rebounded off the loss with Eric Bazinian
in September, and now he's set to return in December to cap off the year with another win over another unbeaten fighter.
That's how you do it.
A long time ago, veteran boxing scribe Stephen Kimothy asked me, who do I think would take over the reins for Canelo Alvarez once he's gone? Because Canelo's not going to be around forever. He's getting up there in age, and it's only natural that one day he's going to leave. Who is the worthiest successor? And I said it then. I think it's Jaime.
Stephen told me that he felt in the next generation, the days of the fighter with 50 professional bouts or 60 professional bouts, those days are over because fighters these days just don't keep a schedule like that. And
to that I responded with Jaime. I felt that Jaime, the way this kid carries himself inside of the ring, outside of the ring, the aesthetic of his fights,
his youth,
his schedule, and what is his growing following of supporters, I felt that he would be the worthy successor for Canelo Alvarez because he fights often, and it's fun to watch. Don't misunderstand the function of this upcoming Bruno Surace fight. It's not a big name. It's not a big name fight, but none of the big names are available right now anyway.
He already fought the biggest name in this division and one of the biggest, if not the biggest name in the sport earlier this year. He's just keeping busy, like he's supposed to.
Think about Jermel Charlo for a second, who also fought Canelo Alvarez. That guy hasn't had a comeback fight yet.
He hasn't come back yet.
Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe is as good as retired. You make all that money with Canelo Alvarez, and what a lot of these guys like to do is take extra time off, which makes it that much more difficult for them to come back and continue their boxing careers. Not Jaime. Jaime's got a better work ethic than that.
There are so many fights out there for this kid next year. An Edgar Berlanga fight, a Diego Pacheco fight, a Christian Mabili fight,
Caleb Plant, William Skull.
Second only to Canelo Alvarez, Jaime is the money man at this weight. Second only to Canelo. He's the biggest name.
Top Rank seems to be making the most of whatever this arrangement is, whatever they have going on with Fernando and Jaime to deliver a fight.
Something to watch for the boxing fans.
And inexpensive metrics for their broadcast partner, because remember, if it's happening south of the border, the lead promoter is Zenfer, not Top Rank, but they can still use that fight to draw eyes to the platform. It's smart business, is what it is.
That doesn't seem to have any association to DAZN or Golden Boy.
So you can make of that what you will.